Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rod Chang, and today is my honor to have a chat with one of my favorite astrologer, Lynn Bell. Lynn is based in Paris, living in France, and is a very. I don't need to introduction to say too much about Lynn because everyone knows Lynn, and every her talk is always amazing and very inspiring. The first time I was attending Lynn's lecture, I was immediately become a fan. It's like, oh wow, amazing astrologer. Not only she living in Paris and she have that charm, when she was on the stage and talking, is like a very intellectual and very interesting and entertainment. There's one time I really couldn't forget the picture she put on the screen. I was like, oh my God, you show that to us. But also Ling is like a very, very great astrologer. Ling was teaching astrology since the 90s and also teach in the Center of Psychological Astrology. But also with AOA this time, we have a great honor to invite her join our Mundane Astrology series and give a talk about holding tight and breaking free Saturn square Uranus on the 17th July. So if you are interested in this topic, because this year the Saturn square Uranus is a super important. If you are interested in this topic, please join us on 17th of July. So come back to you, Lynn. Hello.
Hi, Rod.
And with Lynn, I really, because we know each other a little bit. I mean, more than few years, so
Yeah.
we become friends and we talk a lot of things. And but always one thing I really enjoy because I can always, when I want to go to Paris, I say, oh, I need to go to meet my colleague. Who live in Paris, and Paris become one business trip.
That's true.
So I always have arranged that. Yeah. So one thing is because I used to study in Paris, and I know a lot of people have that kind of idea or fantasy about Paris. I want to listen your experience. Why Paris? Why you choose Paris?
Oh, when I was, I think 6 or 7, I got this present, which was a wallet
Hmm.
with a French poodle and the Eiffel Tower.
Oh yes.
It had sequins on it.
Yes. All right.
So this could be it. That wallet disappeared.
Oh.
So maybe it's the
Ah.
invitation and the missing invitation. That's the
Ah.
beginning. I
Wow.
mean, I remember that.
Uh-huh.
Somebody else coveted it. I
Yeah.
probably had $1 in it,
Mm-hmm.
which was a lot of money when I was a child.
Mm.
And but when I actually traveled to Europe, I had studied some French.
Mm-hmm.
My mother actually used to pretend that she was part French, but she wasn't.
Okay.
She was actually, her father was Greek and his name had a French ending. And because it was changed when he went to America, and she
Okay.
said, well, it's a French name. And I'm
Okay.
like, so I had all these like sort of clues. When
Uh,
you end up doing something, it's like I could ask you how you got to London,
yeah.
but they're little clues. It's a little bit like the breadcrumbs you're following
Yes.
through the
Yes.
forest. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I finally came here, um, uh, it, it would just lots of synchronicity happen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm.
that I met people who said, I remember being in someone's living room, people I'd just met a few days before saying, you'd really fit well here. You
Mm.
should consider moving here.
Mm.
Like it's like, and so there were many experiences like that for me
Oh, okay.
around Paris. And when I came, so I had an initial trip to Europe for about 5, 6 months backpacking.
Okay.
And I went home and I decided I'm going to move to Paris and I'm going to stay at least 2 years
Mm-hmm.
because I had this idea that I'd read somewhere that it takes 2 years to really learn another language, that
Yes.
you a culture and a language, you're not even giving yourself a chance. And I said, so I have to stay at least 2 years, and then I'll decide. So I never left.
Okay, so 2 years, and I remember. Oh, when you went to Paris, what you study?
Well, I was already post college. I was
Okay.
already a doctoral student dropout
Wow.
from literature.
Oh, okay.
So I was probably studying food.
Study.
No, but I was already
Yes.
when I
Okay.
came to Paris, I was the same time I committed to astrology, because I'd been doing astrology for a long time,
Yeah.
but without saying, okay, this is what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Okay.
There's that moment.
Ah.
So I got interested in astrology really young.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's my next question. That's why. Because so how you get into astrology and why? Because I was like um because you went to Paris and become astrologer in Paris. So that's my question. I said, how come you become an astrologer in Paris? So astrology come first.
Astrology comes first.
Yes.
Paris was maybe back there somewhere.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies when I was young was Sabrina. Have you ever seen
Oh,
that?
yes.
With Audrey Hepburn?
Yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
she goes to Paris and
Ah,
transformed.
okay. That's
Maybe, yes.
that's
So
very interesting. Yes,
mhm,
that's very
yes, it's the
interesting.
place of transformation. So
Hmm.
I think many seeds were planted. But no, when I remember, and maybe this had to do with it. I grew up in one part of Chicago,
Hmm.
and then when I was 11,
Hmm.
my family moved. And it was a difficult move because, I went to a new school. I didn't know
Mm.
anybody. I didn't
Hmm.
go at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I suddenly, and you're getting towards that age where the world is not making as much sense to you as it
Hmm.
used to. And I needed to know why the world was the way it was. So I kind of got interested in astrology. And I remember when I was 11, 12, I would spend my allowance on these rolls, monthly horoscope. They'd come in
Ah,
like
yes.
gumball machines, and I'd pull out the roll and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
read it.
like that machine too.
An astrology machine.
Yes.
And then I started buying books, and then I started asking everybody their birth date. And
Uh,
so I was looking for something to help me make sense of a world that had
ah.
stopped making sense. Let's
Mm,
say that.
mm,
I didn't, I needed that very strongly. So I remember
hmm.
when I was my last year in before high school,
Hmm.
I knew everybody's birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd walk into a room, and
Hmm.
when I saw people many, many years later, I walked into a room and I remembered all their
Oh,
birthdays.
God, yes.
But I wasn't an astrologer yet. I was just a baby.
Hmm.
But it was very hard to find information. So I started to find different things. Like I
Hmm.
learned to read palms because one of the
Oh,
books I found was Bentham's Laws of Scientific Handwriting.
wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's wow, but, and then I do astrology. And when I went to university, I was still interested. And then I'd say, this is ridiculous. Astrology is nonsense. And I'd give my books away. And then I'd go to people and say, could I have that book back? I need to know where Venus is in that person's chart, that kind of thing. So I slowly, and then probably my third year in university, I was always really interested in myth and
Hmm.
things like that. I did an independent study, and the professor gave me Jung to read.
Hmm.
And I was dreaming like crazy and reading Jung,
Wow.
and suddenly astrology made sense in a bigger
Okay.
way, and it could come in and be integrated.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it was
Yes.
a long
Yes.
time coming.
Yes. Wow. So that's how you get into astrology and also psychological astrology.
Well, I don't think it
Mm,
was psychological
uh-huh.
astrology early on, but it was my own questions, like most of the books I read, I remember finding books and saying, well, that sounds stupid. Oh, I agree with that.
Uh-huh.
I have that kind of temperament where I don't agree with
Yeah, yeah.
an
Yes.
authority tells me.
Yeah.
So it's as if I had an inner resonance
Uh-huh.
to what the information that was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't actually meet anybody who knew more astrology than I
Ah.
did until I was about 22.
Uh-huh.
And by then I had quite a few ideas. And then when I actually met a teacher, like I
Mm.
met Isabel Hickey in Boston, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, it's not my style.
Okay.
Like I hate to say that,
Uh-huh.
it's really a terrible thing to say, but in fact, I mean, she was great,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a whole thing that came with it that wasn't what I felt I was doing in astrology. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Liz's book on Saturn came out,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, yes, 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 yes.
Ah.
So, and Arroyo's book, because these books came out in the 70s,
Yeah.
and the late, Liz, I think, is 76, and
Mm-hmm.
Arroyo's book is maybe
Uh-huh.
78,
Okay.
77, I don't know.
Mm.
But when these books came out, I said, this is the astrology that
Ah.
makes sense to me. And I'd read lots by then, I'd
Mm-hmm.
encountered
Mm-hmm.
cosmobiology and
Yes.
I'd read Alice Bailey and I'd read lots of things,
Yeah.
but all of it felt a little bit, I think we all have, those of us who do astrology, it's often like remembering something.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find it, you're like, yes, that's it.
Agree. Yes.
You agree? Did you have
Yes.
that experience, Rod?
Exactly. Because when I start study astrology, I was too young, like you. But I was in high school, and then those things in the beginning is just like like a sunshine things or
Yeah,
either
that's
like
right.
a Linda Goodman, But that's okay. That's quite entertained and that build up the basic and a nice block. But then start more I read is more like, oh, I'm wondering why they say this and why they say that. And I know astrology back to when I was in Taiwan. I even do the TV astrology things. It was really, to be honest, I came to London and I have really like engaged with the faculty, London School of Astrology and the CPA. Then I started like oh, that makes sense now because the psychological astrology way, these kind of things make me feel comfortable to talk about astrology. That's my personal my
Mm,
personal view, because other people can talk about astrology with a prediction or with
yeah.
a what's going to happen, this and that. But I don't feel comfortable in that way, to be honest. Doesn't mean yes or no, right or wrong, but I am not comfortable. So that's how I understand why how you say that.
Yeah, and I think coming at that moment in time in the
Mm.
70s, there weren't a lot of astrology books.
Yes.
And the literature was really sparse, believe me. And the
Mm.
books, you'd find Alan Leo, or
Yes.
you'd find these books you'd find Ivy Goldstein Jacobson,
Mm-hmm.
and everything terrible would happen in a
Mm-hmm.
horror chart.
Yeah.
And it was just the moment in the culture. The moment in the
Mm.
culture was a moment of humanist psychology. The idea was the prevailing cultural ethos of that
Mm.
time
Mm, yeah.
was that we had the ability to be our best selves, and whatever
Mm.
we could do to be our best selves, however,
Mm.
if we become conscious.
Mm.
And for me, it seemed obvious that astrology needed to be a tool
Mm.
for us to develop the best things we have in ourselves.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that I'm in denial about the difficulties in a chart. And in fact, the difficulties in a chart and the best things in us work together hand in
Yeah,
hand.
I remember this is one of your topic you told before, and I was there. The difficulty part in the chart. Hey, I remember that. I love that. I love that topic. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's great. It might be time to do again. Who
Oh,
knows?
you please. I think I will arrange you to do that to my student because I
Right.
would
And
enjoy
then
that.
And I also remember the first time I met Liz, I was, I was living in Paris and I was really poor. I really was, had very little money. It's kind of, a little bit of an adventurer. And scraping together my rent every month and, walking up the endless stairs.
Oh, yes, I remember that flat.
So you have this thing. And a friend of mine who I did readings for had, come into some money. And he said, well, Lynn, if you do a little work for me here, I'll pay for you to go to this conference in Switzerland.
Okay.
Because I was talking about, oh my God, look at this conference, etc., but I could never afford to go. I mean, Switzerland even at that time was the most expensive place
Yes.
in Europe.
Yes.
Probably, maybe still is.
Still is, I
right?
guess. Yeah.
And it was just not within my means. It wasn't, I couldn't figure out, I was trying to figure out, well, like, where could I stay? How could I do this? And I was just like, well, I'll never be able to do that. And this friend said, I'll give you an advance or do this for me. And
Okay.
sort of. So I was able to go, and that must have been 1981.
Okay.
And I didn't know about the world of astrology at all because, I knew about the French astrologers. But I went to this conference and it was all the big names at that time, like Noel Till,
Okay.
Richard Eidemann was there. He was great.
Oh.
Alexis Bordas was there, etc. Liz Green was there. Charles Harvey was there. The Hubers were there.
Wow.
I'm forgetting Marion March. Marion March is the
Oh
person
my
who
God.
created the conference, Claude Weiss, all these people. And, I'd never heard this. And I was like, most of the lectures were a little basic. I was expecting more. There were people that were great. But then Liz spoke and it was like, yes. And I remember going to a workshop on Saturn Pluto.
Ooh.
The Saturn Pluto conjunction
Okay.
with Liz, an all-day workshop.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's my first connection to Liz, but it was really more like all the different layers in what I knew, the different parts of me, all came online when I do this kind of astrology. For me, astrology is just not information. It has to, it touches a person deeply. It's a really deep interface with another person's life.
I have to bring this question forward because I was going to ask you about something related to mundane astrology. But now you talk that because that's the important conference for you. And then they were talking about a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That must be 30-year circle thingy, 30-year cycle things.
30,
yeah.
Circle, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the mundane in the mundane astrology, we focus on this kind of outer planet circle, how they influence the world, how the world develop, and how things going related to each other. But you also, as the Lynn Bell, I know mostly people know about the family astrology and also the psychological astrology. But these two things, how they blend together, because I know you are great in talking about outer planet. I have to say, every time when you talk about outer planet, I was like, whoa.
Well, I also have to say, I met Andre Barbeau when I came to Paris. I discovered Andre Barbeau's work. And for me, it was like, it's one of those moments where you open a book and you're going, no, really? Incredible.
Yes.
Amazing.
He is.
And I was in the library. I couldn't really afford to buy books. And so I was in the library at the Pompidou Center.
Yeah.
And I found Barbeau's books and I was sitting on the floor reading, having light bulbs go out.
Yes.
In my brain.
I was looking for my Bobo's French book. I find it second hand, on the Saint Michel area. Those are second-hand bookshop. I find his book there. that's how I know him.
Well, so I read his books and I wrote him a letter.
Oh.
And I met him. I mean, our Andre was famously open. So I met Andre and talked to him and said,
Mm,
your work should be known in the English speaking community because no one, this was genius work.
yes.
So the whole idea of the cycle
Mm,
was something that really came into me through Barbeau. And
okay.
actually, the way Liz worked on the cycle was different because Liz is bringing the notion of the collective unconscious.
Yes.
And 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 although Barbeau does that a little bit, he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
do it so explicitly. It's not where
Mm-hmm.
his gift is. His gift is extraordinarily technical and an incredible grasp of history.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Incredible grasp.
Oh, I
I mean,
agree.
one of the last times I talked to him, he said, I know the 19th century pretty well and the
Mm.
20th century. He said, but beyond that, I'm just a student. This was when he was
Yeah, I
90.
still remember the book's name because also I couldn't find it because I have to dig out somewhere here. But I think
Yeah,
I remember the book called L'Astrologie mondiale.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But it's not the best. This would have been Les Astres et Histoire or something like that. The
okay.
Stars in
Okay.
History, or
Okay.
it's a book in which he talks about his discovery of the Saturn-Neptune cycle when he was
Okay.
15 years old,
Wow.
essentially, and then how he followed it,
Okay.
how he developed
Yeah.
the whole idea of the cycle.
Oh, wow. That is,
And and it's just one of those moments of genius, right?
yeah.
So I think that the and Rujar also, I think also had insight into the cycles,
Mm-hmm.
in the way he did the lunation cycles.
Yes. Yes.
But you could see there was just something coming in. So living in France is
Mm.
the place where mundane astrology really was strong even before Barbeau, the
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Uh, but that work on it, but then Liz added another dimension, and that's the
Mm.
dimension that Barbeau wasn't so interested in sign placements, but
Ah,
for
okay.
me, on a psychological level, well, you heard my talk on Uranus and Taurus. Uh,
Yes.
on a psychological level, when a planet changes sign, it's just really clear that there's a whole new, it's like we've turned over the earth and planted new seeds and something
Yeah.
else is coming
Mm-hmm.
out. And so I think of it I think Jung is still a very good guide when you think about collective and mundane astrology,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because every moment in time is actually lighting up certain archetypal possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So even the Saturn Pluto conjunction, which is the archetypal possibility of
Mm-hmm.
total control from
Mm-hmm.
outside forces,
Yeah.
right, and fate closing in,
Yeah.
is one of the archetypal possibilities.
Mm. So we are in a very interesting time. There is like
Mm.
last year we have the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction totally changing the element. And this year we have like 3 times Saturn square Uranus. And from the astrologer's view, how you see this time? I mean, maybe this is a little bit of tease about your talk.
It's a little bit of a tease about my talk. Well, I see this time, I mean, coming into the Saturn-Pluto conjunction and the
Mm.
Saturn-Pluto-Jupiter
Mm.
conjunction
Yeah,
with
yes.
the nodes and
Yes.
Pluto's south node. So
Mm.
the combination is just huge.
Yes.
It was really clear that, something was going to go into the recycle bin. Right?
Yes.
It's really clear that something big was coming that could swallow us up. But
Mm.
I often quoted Liz, she always said, if we're lucky, the
Mm.
Saturn Pluto won't bring massive
Mm.
destruction,
Mm-hmm.
although we did have the beginning of the AIDS crisis, of course.
Yes.
And Reagan and Thatcher came to power, so we could
Yeah.
talk about those things. But what you could see is it coming together just at the end, just before the Jupiter-Saturn cycle, just
Mm-hmm.
before the 20-year cycle that
Mm.
we're used to, the 20-year generational cycle, that
Yes.
this combination of huge cycles all coming together,
Yes.
that's extremely rare.
I think so,
And
yeah.
you can really feel that our world is being dismantled, that we're living a period in history where we're no longer in the same era, but we're in
Yes.
the middle of it, so we can't see what will emerge.
Mm.
We can be hopeful or deeply pessimistic, depending on our
Yes, depending.
personality.
I agree. I agree. Or both at the same time.
That's right. And I think so. I think the thing is in a time like that, with Saturn Pluto, or Saturn Uranus, we're talking about different Saturn Uranus
Yeah.
events affecting people. Um, there's this battle that we're all going through internally between
Yeah.
holding on to what's familiar and what we know, and
Yes.
the impossibility of doing that because Uranus is square Saturn and will not allow us to hold on to the old forms. So either
Sure.
something gets broken against our will,
Yeah.
or something gets broken and we go willingly.
Yes. Wow. I'm really looking forward to listening
Yeah.
your talk on the on 17th of July, because every time you can inspire me so many things, and I usually write it down and think about what my view of that and this and that. That was so interesting. In the end, I think because if we continue to talk, I can chat with you for a long time. But I know I know you're hungry. No, sorry,
No,
I
no,
shouldn't
I'm
say
not
that.
hungry anymore.
Okay, because I know when you talk about astrology, it's just like we can just da 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 da. But
Yeah.
I think we should uh, uh, um, make a kind of a small ending here, because if not, we will talk about hours of astrology and we will never stop.
That's
One last question. I mean, because so you are a teacher and I am a teacher too. Wait, every time when we teach the people who new come to the astrology, we will always we give some advice. Do you have any message to the new astrologer?
Well, my message to new astrologers is, in the beginning, you want to know all about you and the people around you. But the world, I think people come to astrology at this moment want to know what is going on.
Yes.
It's not just that. But you're that the whole is don't limit yourself too soon.
Mm-hmm.
There are many approaches to astrology. And
Mm-hmm.
you, you know, again, we were talking about don't follow to the letter everything you read.
Mm,
Just because someone has said it doesn't mean that's the
yeah.
only way it can be interpreted. But I would also say that I think that an awareness of the larger world and the
Mm.
larger currents that aren't only me and who I spoke to and what happened
Mm,
yesterday, but an awareness of this larger context is
yeah.
incredibly important. And that's what mundane astrology gives.
Wow.
It gives this setting for, we're missing something when
Yeah.
we don't take those big movements into account. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I love this initiative you're doing, Rod. It's,
Oh, thank
really
you.
happy you invited me. And it's wonderful to see you giving a series of lectures on this, because
Yeah.
I don't remember this happening ever.
No, because I think you have to need to be crazy, right? Because I don't know why this idea come to my mind. Say, I want to do this. I love mundane astrology, and I have school, and I'm just like, you know what? I love mundane astrology, and I want to invite all the great astrologer to talk about it.
Well, you should consider somebody who you haven't invited yet, but who I saw part of a mundane astrology
Give me the
course.
list. Give me the list.
Well, it's Karen Hamaker Zondag.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yes, definitely.
She is she's done an amazing job doing
Yes.
courses where
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
explains the basics.
Yeah,
She's
definitely. Because I think at this time I have invite 14 astrologer, so I will have a break, and then do maybe
14 astrologers.
yeah 14. Yes. So that's why I just I couldn't invite everyone, but there's still a lot of topic.
Well, in France, yesterday I had lunch with a friend of mine, Luc Biget,
Uh-huh.
and he's writing a series of books on mundane astrology. And
Okay.
he told me he just finished his volume on the Neptune Pluto cycle. He's written
Wow.
200 pages.
Oh my God.
Of course, you would have to translate him.
Well, I can read
Well,
directly.
or really encourage him to speak English.
Yes. Yes.
But
Okay.
you know, so
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find a translator to do that.
good idea.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, thank you, Lynn. And for everyone, here's the message. Please come to join us on the 17th of July, 5 p.m. UK time. Lynn is going to talk about holding tight and breaking free Saturn square Uranus. And thank you, Lynn. Oh, yes. Yeah, I know. We just talk about our personal experience. Oh, that is, whoo.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
so
good
thank
luck, everybody, with holding tight and breaking free until July 17th, where we hope to give you some
yeah,
special clues.
yes. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.